hi there, and welcome to another episode of Technique Tasters brought to you by Creative Scrapbooker magazine. My name is Noreen Smith, and I can typically be found over at organizedandcreativemom.com, but I'm also a Creative Memories advisor from Calgary, Alberta, Canada. And it's truly been my pleasure to work with the magazine over the last several years to come on and share ideas and tips and tricks on how to use Creative Memories' beautiful products and amazing tools. Now today we're going to make this layout, which I like to call dynamic diagonals because of this much more difficult than it looks diagonal and mitered sort of corner. And I'm going to teach you how to use this 45-degree line that's printed on the base of the 12-inch trimmer to make these diagonal cuts so simply you're not even going to believe it. So let me clear this away and let's get started. Now for this layout, I'm going to be working with these beautiful papers from the Welcome Home collection that was released in January 2022 from Creative Memories. And I'm going to use one piece of the double-sided pattern paper, this lovely blue floral paper from the designer paper pack. And I'm also going to be using this lovely navy page from the Tone on Tone paper pack for my base. I'm also going to be using a title card from the Welcome Home Variety Matte Pack and some of the fun foiled embellishments from the die cut embellishment pack. Now to get started, we're going to cut our designer paper into 4 different pieces, just using the straight regular cutting feature of the 12-inch trimmer. Now you'll notice on the base plate of the trimmer, we have measurements coming from the cutting line over to the left, but we also have a few smaller cutting lines up to about 1 3/4 to the right of the cutting line. And anytime I'm cutting small strips, 1 3/4 or less, I like to place my paper into the trimmer this direction. And that's just so that more of the paper stays on the base and doesn't sort of flop off. Sometimes I find that if I put my 1-inch cut over here, the paper tends to kind of pop up off of the base of the trimmer. So it's just a little easier to cut this way. So again, you can cut up to 1 3/4 to the right of the cutting line. So I've just placed the edge of my paper at the 1-inch mark, lowered the guide, and then to actually make the cut, I just press down on the blade housing and slide it down. It cuts so smoothly. I've never used a cutter that is as smooth as this 12-inch trimmer. I'm going to repeat that 2 more times. So again, 1 inch and a third 1-inch strip. And that's all of our kind of straight cutting that we're going to be doing. So really at this point we have 1 9-inch by 12-inch strip and 3 1-inch by 12-inch strips, just from that one piece of paper. Now we're going to set the strips aside. We're going to use those as kind of additional decorative elements, but we're going to focus now on creating a diagonal piece from this 9-inch strip. Now cutting a diagonal couldn't be easier with this 45-degree line. And what we're going to do basically is place our paper onto the base, and we're going to line up the point of the paper with whatever measurement we need. And in this case, I'm going to place my paper along the 45-degree line, and I'm going to place it so that it meets the 4.5-inch mark. So when you think about following the 45-degree inch line down and following the 4.5-inch line down, we're going to make the corner of our paper sit right in this little corner, just like that. So I'm making sure that my edge of my paper lines up with the line. My corner is in this nice little spot here, and then I just fold my guide down and make a trim. So I've got a triangle that I'm going to set aside. I can use that for another project, but you can see now that I have a beautiful cut. And I didn't have to do any measuring or marking with my pencil. I just placed my paper into the trimmer. Now to get the coordinating angled cut on the opposite side, we're just gonna flip over the paper. And now we're going to place this point at the same marked spot. So again, lining up the edge with the 45-degree line and making sure that my corner is right at the point where a 4.5-inch mark meets that 45-degree line. Make sure that's nicely placed there, and then just cut. And again, I'll set that other piece aside. So now I have this beautiful pattern that, you know, kind of almost looks like the top of an envelope, the envelope flap, so to speak. And I love the way that that divides up that base page to set off some photos. Now we're going to take some of our strips and use them to create a little bit more interest on our base page. And remember, this is just the 1-inch strips that we cut first. So one of the strips is going to go across the bottom like this. And then I'm going to use the other 2 strips to really highlight that diagonal design. Now you could go ahead and, you know, overlap them and trim them off and that kind of thing, but we're going to use the 45-degree inch line again to create a mitered corner. So this time, instead of feeding our paper down through that way, we're just going to place one long edge along the 45-degree line and the top point along the cutting line. So you'll see on this gray cutting strip, the first line that's underneath the number is where the blade will cut. So we'll go ahead and we'll place that top point or the top corner of our strip on the cutting line and the long edge along the 45-degree line. Pop the guide down, and again, it just cuts through it so easily. So there's one of our mitered corners, and we're going to do the other one. And so that we get our matching corners, we are going to have to trim the opposite side so that when we trim it off and flip it around, the cut will be in the right location. Okay, so we're going to place the opposite side into the trimmer, again with the point on the cutting line and the long edge along the 45-degree line, and just cut. And now when we flip it over, we're going to have a beautiful matched or mitered corner that is perfectly 45 degrees. So I'm going to just go ahead and adhere everything down and show you how we'll finish off the layout. So now I have everything adhered down, the 1-inch strip at the bottom and the 2-inch strips that we mitered the corners, and the lovely background that again kind of looks like an envelope flap. And that dynamic diagonals pattern you can really see now. So it's going to provide a great base for some photos of my family and I moving into our new home. I knew that I wanted to use this fun card with the little house on it because again, not only is this going to be about home, but that little triangular roof is going to really reinforce that idea of the diagonals. So I think that's probably going to go there, and then I'm going to have room for a couple of photos. I've just got some of the light gray cardstock here and just kind of playing with the placement. So something like that. Again, just emphasizing that diagonal. And then I can use one of these little journal spots, just maybe tuck that underneath there for some journaling. And I really love this welcome sign, so that could go down the side here. And maybe because that's sort of like the front of the house, maybe like a little urn, you know, that you would typically see outside your front door. And then on the little house itself, I love the idea of a wreath. That is so cute. And then I did notice that there's this foiled sign that says home with another wreath on it. So I think I could just layer that over top there. And then maybe another little urn along the side of my front door, or my little house, so to speak. There's a nice navy one that picks up the navy from the background. And then I really love these photo corners that again are foiled. So the foil just makes it really, really pretty. So I thought maybe if I added one there, I think there's another one. There we go. And that one could anchor this photo up top here. So that would be a nice sort of, again, diagonal juxtaposition. And then once I get my photos on there, I did notice that there are these fun little foiled birds. So maybe one could just sit here and the other little fun bird could just kind of be on top of this little welcome sign. So I'm going to go ahead and print out some photos of my family moving into our new home recently, and then I'll be able to add some journaling and then finish off maybe with a few of these really pretty faux enamel gems or faux enamel dots, and those will just really tie everything together. And then I still have lots of embellishments ready for some other layouts. Just adding this final little gem down here at the corner. I've added a picture of our new house and some of the moving boxes, especially from my craft room, and a picture of my family outside our new house with the, with the sold sign. We're ready to move in. And then I just clustered everything that I had sort of laid out, and I decided to just sort of pop that title card up and off the surface of the layout with some foam squares just to really sort of make it stand out. So I love the way that that has all come together, the diagonals in the background bringing our attention to the photos, the diagonals going across the layout with those lovely foiled embellishments, the diagonal of the little roof line on the card, emphasizing that as well, and then even our little birds just kind of on a diagonal from each other. So I'm really pleased with that layout and how it turned out. Loved working with the Welcome Home products, and of course the ease of which I was able to cut the diagonals using the 45-degree line on the 12-inch trimmer. So I hope that's given you a new idea for using your 12-inch trimmer. I hope you get a chance to try a layout similar to this and create some dynamic diagonals of your own. Don't forget to grab the latest copy of Creative Scrapbooker magazine for so much more inspiration and ideas, tips, and tricks. Thanks again to Creative Scrapbooker magazine for having me again on this episode of Technique Tasters. I look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye-bye for now.